High Elves are often dismissed as a glass cannon. Powerful magic, low survivability, and not much else, or so the reputation goes. In most discussions, Altmer are framed as a bit of a beginner trap, strong on paper but fragile in practice, and outclassed later by more flexible races. But that reputation ignores how Skyrim actually works. Skyrim isn't a game where raw defense determines success. It's a game about tempo, who can act longer, who can control space, who can end fights first. When you look closely at magicka scaling, spell cost curves, perk progression, and early game difficulty, High Elves emerge as one of the strongest starts and one of the most scalable races in the entire game. Not because they're safe, not because they're particularly forgiving, but because they give you more power earlier than anyone else, and Skyrim rewards early power disproportionately. Just before we get started, I just want to let you know that everything I'm about to say is an absolute irrefutable fact. High Elves begin the game with plus 50 magicka. No other race gets a bonus this large to any primary resource. That number sounds simple, but its impact is enormous. At level 1, most races have just enough magicka to cast a handful of novice spells before completely running dry. High Elves don't. That extra magicka allows High Elves to cast multiple additional spells before stopping, use higher cost spells earlier without waiting for perks or gear, and fight multiple enemies back to back without hiding to regenerate or have to neck potions. And this advantage hits at the exact moment when magicka matters most. Early game spells are inefficient, regeneration is slow, and enemies don't wait politely for you to recover. Other races can eventually reach similar magicka pools, but Skyrim front loads its difficulty. The first 10 levels are where mage characters struggle the most, and Altmer simply skip that part of the struggle. This isn't just convenience, it's superiority. Mage builds are weakest at the beginning of the game. You begin with limited spell selections, high magicka costs, and almost no regeneration bonuses. A single mismanaged fight can leave you empty, exposed, and dead. High Elves smooth over every one of these pain points immediately. More magicka means less downtime between encounters, less dependence on potions, and fewer moments where you're forced to disengage. This translates directly into confidence, because you can push fights instead of retreating from them. Ironically, this makes High Elves one of the most forgiving mage races for new players, despite their fragile reputation. Mistakes are easier to recover from when you can just keep casting spells. While other races have to play cautiously early on, the High Elves play decisively. High Elves' racial power, Highborn, massively increases magicka regeneration for 60 seconds. This doesn't increase damage, it does something far more important. It removes the single biggest limiter on magic, resource exhaustion. Highborn allows sustained spellcasting through long fights, emergency recovery when a battle goes sideways, and aggressive play during difficult encounters without having to retreat. This power transforms magicka from a fragile, finite resource into a renewable weapon. Instead of asking, "Can I afford to cast this spell?" High Elves ask, "How fast do I want to end this fight?" Used correctly, Highborn allows Altmer to overwhelm encounters that would force lesser mages to have to disengage. And because it's regeneration based, it scales naturally with low spell costs, faster base regens, and enchanted gear. It never becomes obsolete. High Elves also begin with a plus 10 bonus to illusion, and plus 5 bonuses to destruction, conjuration, restoration, alteration, and enchanting. No other race is this broadly specialized. Most racial bonuses push you towards a single archetype. High Elves don't. They enable pure destruction mages, illusion-based control mages, summoners and necromancers, defensive alteration specialists, and enchantment-focused hybrids. This flexibility matters because Skyrim rewards layered magic. Control, damage, defense, and utility all stack, and High Elves start ahead in every relevant category. They don't lock you into a path, they accelerate whichever one you choose. Because High Elves start with more magicka, they benefit disproportionately from cost reduction perks, enchantment gear, and standing stones. As spell costs drop, their large magicka pool shifts roles. Early on, it's about survival. Later, it's about freedom and choice. High Elves can chain spells without strict rotation, maintain summons while casting offensively, and layer buffs, crowd control, and damage simultaneously. Other mages have to plan carefully. High Elves get to improvise. This is why Altmer become terrifying in the late game, not because they gain unique bonuses, but because their early advantage compounds into unmatched flexibility. Unlike earlier Elder Scrolls games, High Elves in Skyrim have no innate elemental weaknesses. The survivability issues come from the use of light armor or robes, their reliance on magicka in the early game, and positioning and spacing errors. This distinction matters. If an Altmer dies quickly, it's usually due to build decisions, not racial penalties. They're not fragile by design, they're demanding. High Elves reward preparation, positioning, and knowledge of enemy behavior. They're high skill, higher reward. Altmer society revolves around mastery of magic. They believe that magic is refinement, that discipline defines worth, and that power must be cultivated, not inherited. This philosophy is reflected mechanically. High Elves aren't particularly physically tough, they aren't particularly physically adaptable, but they're dominant when they're allowed to act. Skyrim's systems, scaling perks, enchantments, and resource management perfectly supports this worldview. High Elves are somewhat rare in Skyrim and often unwelcome. Their presence carries a political weight, especially given the Thalmor. Playing an Altmer means standing out immediately, being associated with authority and fear, and navigating distrust and hostility. It adds tension to every interaction, and depth to a mage-centric Dragonborn. High Elves don't survive Skyrim by enduring it, they survive it by ending fights before endurance ever matters. They're powerful in the early game, they scale well into the late game, and they turn magicka into an unstoppable force. If Skyrim rewards preparation, knowledge, and overwhelming power, then the High Elves embody that philosophy better than any other race. A very special thank you to my generous backers: Will Wheatley 6665, Remix 2000D, Nathrak, Juan Jesus 13, Ellie Sophia XX, Rubber T60, and Sniper Lord 696. Thank you all for your generous support, it is appreciated. And an enormous thank you to Suzy from the Discord for this incredible art piece that you've been staring at for, I don't know, 10 minutes or so. Go and follow her on Tumblr, the link will be in the description below, and it's also on the top right of your screen now. SuzyGoneMad on Tumblr, check her out.